Hello and welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to break down and talk about Liam Delap, a striker who right now is probably the most likely signing this summer, the clearest name on United's summer transfer agenda, one that they could probably afford, and a player who has, as a young player, continued to rise through the ranks and the eyes of the Premier League on him. 11 goals this season right now for Ipswich. Obviously, could be on more before the season end, but in a bad team that is pretty much guaranteed to be relegated at this point in time. So what I'm going to do in this video is really just talk about the major concerns with Liam Delap. I'm also going to talk about the good things that he does. And yes, it is titled Why I Wouldn't Sign Liam Delap. And yes, I will be making the argument why I wouldn't sign Liam Delap, but it's not going to be a one-sided argument either. And my purpose with this is not to have it be a thing where at the end of it, you look at it and say, we definitely shouldn't sign him. And if he does sign for us, which is a distinct possibility, I'm not going to use it to say we shouldn't have signed this player. What a piece of shit, something like that. I don't like him. I actually quite like him. I like when I watch him. I like the type of player he is. And I have a lot of trust in the management right now to get things right. But I do have some serious concerns. So let's get into them. Why I wouldn't sign. A concerns raised, not intended to be taken as not liking or being against the player should United sign them. I'll probably do some more of these for other players in the coming weeks and months as there are more that United get linked to, or some that start to look a little more possible that I just personally think are bad ideas. Am I going to be right? Who knows? It doesn't matter. These are just my concerns. So, Liam Delap. Um, this is one picture, okay? 22 years old. He's in the 4th percentile for passes received. 62nd in aerial duel percentage, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So he's near the bottom in all of Europe for strikers who receive the ball. Now, when you look at his offensive actions, you look at that and say, for how few passes he receives, he does a hell of a lot. And you would be right. Expected goals being in the 52nd percentile for passes received, that's really good. Non-penalty goals being in the 56th percentile, while 4th in passes received, that's really good. That means he does a lot more than what is created for him. Does that make sense? And that is a positive, but it could potentially also be a negative. Fairly low passes to penalty area, expected assists, things like that. So you can see high offensive actions, low assists. He's making shots for himself. And I'll break it down in further stats in a minute, but that's the type of player Liam Delap is right now at Ipswich this season. He's a player who does not touch the ball that much, but when he does, he's very good at moving with it, running with it, and making shots for himself. Here's why he won't make it at United. He just hasn't done it yet. When you look at these numbers, 24th percentile for non-penalty expected goals, he's not getting a lot of chances. First percentile for passes attempted. He's not involved in build-up. He's not involved in much else. Progressive passes, super low. Passes received, super low. So he's just not doing that much. Low touches, low all of that. Now, that being said, again, you can look at that as a positive, but I will touch on that in a minute. The point is, he's a very, very low volume involvement striker. He's just not really doing much by way of the game. And a big part of that is simply because Ipswich just aren't very good. They don't have a lot of possession. They don't have a lot of control. But, that is a concern to me. He's just, if this was a United striker and you looked at the numbers and said percentile 1 for passes, percentile 6 for touches, you'd be like, well, hold on a second. How's this going to work? And look, that's a consequence of the team. That's why it's not necessarily bad. It's just, he's not really a striker who's ever done it in a team that has possession. You look at his positioning on the heat map, he's generally picking the ball up kind of deep around here and then running. That's why the progressive carries and takedowns are so high. He's not, sat in the box. He's everywhere, and that's could be good. But he's the lowest volume passer in England at striker. He's completely non-existent in the buildup. Do we have a team that can sacrifice a player in the buildup? I don't know. Super low possession, low volume shooter, doesn't spend much time in the box, mostly makes his own shot. So again, it's like this is why he wouldn't make it. He's just never done it. It's a hard one to look at, and the reason why I don't consider this to be like a complete killer of any possibility that we should sign him is because sometimes when you're buying younger players, that's just the case. They come from worse teams. They come from teams where they've never done it. But the question is, well, can he? And the answer to that has to honestly be, don't know. We don't know. Is he any different to Rasmus Højlund? Um, you know, is he, because Højlund's a similar player, low involvement, runs with the ball a lot, actually a good finisher. Did the same thing at Atalanta, even though they were a better team. He wasn't that involved. And I look and I just think, we just don't know. I have no idea. And a team that has 68% possession is parked around the opponent's box like we were against Forest. Is he going to be any good in that? When you're not just getting chances on the run, is he going to be any good in that? It's an unknown. He also has zero-headed goals. That's a little bit of a concern to me. As I said, I do think that being good in the air is something that matters. He's won the majority of his aerial duels, but not seemingly in the box. He's got a lot of clearances, so I imagine mostly those are defensive headers. But again, consequence of Ipswich, I will say the one experience I've seen where they had a lot of possession against a loaded box was Ipswich against us after Dorgu's red card not that long ago against the loaded box. Now, we have really good box defenders, guys like Maguire, but they gave him fits. They gave him absolute fits. He got real frustrated in that game. And so I look at it and I think this is what worries me most of all. It's not what he can do. I have no idea if he will be a good box striker, if he will be a good possession striker, how he will fit into a team that has more of the ball. We just don't know. Here's why he will succeed. The positives. He's a very good shooter and he's a very good dribbler. And I'm big on those things in particular. When you look at his number here, it's not anomalous, his shooting. He gets he takes actually like his expected goals per shot is actually a little bit low, but his total goal accumulations to goals are not that dissimilar. He scores a little better than his XG, right? 0.07, 0.06. There's players where this has been like 0.5 and you go, they're not going to make that goal record in the future. This kind of tells you if he was getting double the chances, he'd probably score double the goals because there's nothing anomalous here, right? That was fooled me on, Darwin Nunez. He had an insane finishing season where he was like 0.2 on this, like finishing way like double his XG. And then he goes to Liverpool, really struggles to finish. But he's a good shooter, solid shooter, and he's been that way most of his time. Dribbling, take-ons attempted, successful. The success rate, very high. Rarely tackled, he's a good dribbler. He is good at that. But yeah, he's a good shooter, and when you watch him, he has quality ball striking, good power, good. He can hit the ball clean. He's a good shooter. There's no doubt about it. He is a fantastic dribbler. He's high quality, wins his duels, and that is a huge thing for me. That's why that's the biggest positive I could say about him is he wins his duels. And I harp on that every single day about how United players do not often win their duels. And especially in the front line, the striker, the 10, they've got to win their battles. They cannot lose every single battle. But again, it's mostly carrying from deep forward that those duels are being won rather than in a high possession-based team. He carries the ball into attacking areas for a shot very well. If you look here, progressive carries, total carrying distance, all of that is high, but its carries into the final third and penalty areas also very high. So for how little he touches the ball, how few passes he receives, he's generally really good at creating a shot for himself. So that's something we are lacking. Rasmus Højlund, unfortunately, at this point in time, is pretty poor at making his own shot. He does not tend to take the ball, go with it, and get his own shot. So, on that basis, I think Liam Delap has a huge advantage over Rasmus Højlund in comparison between the two, which is he is good at taking the ball and making his own shot. Again, the caveat to that is it's when he's running into space, because Ipswich are generally playing more defensively and playing on the break because of just the nature of they're not that good. The game is maybe a little more open, but you can see by take-ons, shots, all of that, he is creating his own chances quite well. He runs the channels well to take on players, and he's good on the ball. So runs the channels, gets the ball well, takes his man on, gets in the box, takes a shot, scores well. That's what he's good at. And he's quite good at those things when you watch him, especially compared to the volume. It's quite impressive. But then there's these concerns. This is what I would say he needs to work on at United. Look at his positioning here, highlighting on the heat map. He just doesn't spend much time in the box. We don't know. I'm not saying he can do that at Ipswich, but we don't know if he were to join United, this is what he'd have to do. He would have to learn to occupy the box, not be a drifter. We don't have enough players who occupy the box as it is. It's one of the biggest weaknesses in our team. We do not have players who get in the box and get on the end of crosses, low crosses, passes, that just take up space, the Cavani types. Cavani was great at drifting all around, but goddamn was he good at getting in the box and moving when it mattered. That's what we're missing at United deeply and heavily. And the underrated aspect of Gyökeres, when you compare and you say, well, he's a good channel runner, blah, 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 all that. Totally true. Half of his game, Gyökeres is unbelievably good for sporting in the box. And I think that when you just see the highlights of Champions League where they're playing without the ball, then you see the runs. Then you see the balls in the channel. That's everything. What you don't see is all the games when they were up against loaded boxes, when they're up against tough Portuguese opposition that are sitting deep, and they do that in Portugal, that are physical and hard playing. His movement in and around the box, exceptional. Draws penalties, does all sorts of good things. That Delap will have to improve upon and work on massively because it's a super unknown. Then progressive passes received is part of that. He needs to be positioning himself to receive the ball. These are the unknowns. So box presence, he's a good runner, dribbler, but usually carrying. He does not actually receive that many passes in the channel. So he can run the channels, but he's often picking it up and running the channels. It's less that he's receiving it in the channels that often and then running with it. That being said, he is capable of this. He just scored a goal yesterday that I retweeted because I'm planning to talk about him and all that. And I thought, yeah, that's a good goal. It's a good goal. He runs in the channel, he receives it, gets to the edge of the box, but you can see it's exactly that thing. That's about half the game that we need, and he's good at it. Much better than we're getting currently. Receive the ball in the channel. We saw that. Garnacho received the ball in the channel, fumbles it, dribbles into the defender. Rasmus Højlund receives the ball in the channel, often can't do much with it. He went running, received the ball in the channel, took his man on, passed it to the overlap, and got himself to the right spot for the cutback to score. That's a good move, including the second part of that move. The second part of that move is more important to me than the first part, and it gave me a little bit of hope because the right positioning in the box is key there. But he needs to make sure he's positioned and making the runs well to receive the ball in the channels and not just run back to get it and then run into the channels. Headed goals, that's a big one for me. 0 headed goals. Is he any good in the air? We do not have enough players who are good in the air. We had 6 chances with the head against Forest that at least 2 of them should have been goals. We just do not score enough headed goals. It's been a problem for a long time, and good teams tend to score those goals as well. Be there for the tap-ins. Don't evade the danger areas and drop too deep for the ball, and that's the point. When we have more possession, I don't want to see this. This is what I'm talking about with those touches. Where does he pick the ball up most of all? Picks it up in the defensive half, in the defensive areas, and then starts carrying it forward. Whereas, again, look, most of his touches are in the middle and attacking third. He's a striker after all. We'll go back to that. But, when you look at the raw numbers, but where's he in the high percentile is in the defensive third. Now, he does good defensive work. He works hard. Those are good things. But I don't want him dropping too deep, getting too deep involved. I want him picking it up mostly in the attacking third and getting more touches in the attacking third and the attacking penalty area. Again, it's mostly the unknown. It's not even this is why, stats alone don't tell the whole tale and why you really do have to watch a player. But even with all of that, I've watched plenty of games of him. I still don't know how he'll do in a loaded box. We'll see. I don't know how he'll do when we're not playing on the run. These are the unknowns. These are the things that if he joined United, we'd be saying maybe he's good at them, maybe he's not, but he hasn't been doing them. And that makes him a project because this is what he's going to have to learn how to do. He's not doing it presently. That would be the risk with Liam Delap. He's got really good traits. There's some things he's really good at, but he does not do any of this right now. And there's not much evidence that he can. Not evidence that he can't either. It's a funny thing with football. Um, so if he joins United, these are the things he'll have to work on. And then just for fun, here are my potential similar comparisons. These are not all busts, mind you, or maybe they're just mid-level, or maybe they just never rose to the heights that they could be. But they're players that I find actually have pretty similar traits to Liam Delap that maybe it didn't take the highest level. Starting with Mikel Antonio, who's actually I quite like as a player. I think he had as a player for West Ham really similar traits. He was actually a decent finisher. He scored quite a number of goals during his time at West Ham in the Premier League. He's a strong runner, strong in transitions, strong on the ball. But he was never an elite striker, never really like that box striker type of guy. Moise Kean made a move to Everton. He's doing well in Italy right now, but when he came to the Premier League, similar type of player. He was really good on the ball, a decent finisher, good on the run. Struggled to, and he's another one of these that when you look at the numbers and all that, he's a good dribbler, he's a good carrier, good on the ball. Struggles with the rounding out the whole game and really couldn't hack it in the Premier League. Rasmus Højlund, again, kind of the similar example I find right now, where, again, actually pretty decent on the ball in the dribble, decent running into spaces, and a good finisher, but just can't put it all together for a possession-based side or a team that is going to dominate more of the game or intends to dominate more of the game. So these would be my similar concerns. Like, will he could fall into a category of making a step up and being like one of these players. Now, he's already doing it in the Premier League. And so I would lean closer to Mikel Antonio, who's not a bad player. And so I think there's the strongest potential, the most likely outcome for Liam Delap signing is he's a good, not great striker for us, that he gets us 10 to 12 goals, but may struggle to put the full game together, may not make us as a team that much better at times because he doesn't get involved in that much, may struggle in games against loaded possession, but do really well in the games where we have a bit more space. That would be probably what I see as my concerns. For 40 million, might be worth the risk to see if he can do better than that because he does have really good traits. But so yeah, just for fun, those would be my comparisons of concern, perhaps that I could say. That's what I've got for this video. Hope you found it interesting. Just kind of a fun one. It's not to be taken too seriously, rather, but taken lightly and just an opinion, a look at it, my concerns for it. There's a good chance United end up signing Liam Delap, or at least going for him this summer, and so it's always worth looking at that and saying, how's it going to go? Is it going to be okay? What could happen? And this is my stance on it. This is what I see. These are the concerns that I have. And if he were to join us, what I would want to see him work on as well. I'll probably do this for some other players again, as I said, as we get closer to summer and more players come in. But leave me your thoughts below. Let me know. Do you agree with my assessments? Completely disagree? You think he's a star? You think he's a complete utter dud? It seems really wildly polarizing, this player on this topic, and I can kind of understand why. Okay, so that's what I've got. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on. See you in the next video.